Welcome to Thinner Peace in Menopause and Beyond. This is Dr. Deb Butler, Master Life and Weight Coach, and as always, your coach. Today is episode 119, and I know I tell you I've got something special for you, but I got something special for you again. Stay tuned. Hi, all my dear friends. How are you today? Are you enjoying your summer? I am really enjoying my summer. Lately, what I've been doing that I've been enjoying the most is I usually get up at least an hour earlier than I need to because I like to journal and ponder and think and download all my thoughts so I can try to really create a beautiful, intentional day. And what I've been doing lately is I have this wicker chair out on my front porch. And lately I've just been going out and sitting in it and watching the birds and the butterflies and reflecting and journaling. And it has been such a lovely gift that I've been giving myself, especially sitting outside in the morning. So I don't know what you guys do first thing in the morning, but I am going to encourage you, and this has absolutely nothing to do with my podcast today, but something to share just about me and maybe something for you is that, not just rolling out of bed and running. I think that the best gift you can give yourself is to get out of bed and gently wake yourself up and get your brain going in a way that's really going to work for you because, your brain is minded by you. You are the minder of your brain. So if you're one of those people who just roll out of bed and start running, I want to encourage you to get up a little bit earlier, sit with yourself for a while, find a beautiful place to sit, and just sit. Okay, so now that I've given you a little piece of my morning, I want to share somebody really special with you today. So I have a client, and her name is Sarah Bamford Seidelman, and I'm giving you her whole name because she also is a coach, and she has so much wisdom in her coaching, but also she has so much wisdom in the journey that she and I took together through quote unquote weight loss. And I always call it the quote weight loss thing because, it's so much more than losing weight. And as Sarah will tell you in this podcast today, that it's so much more than the weight. And the weight is it's kind of like this metaphor or this symbol or something. But for her, because she is a very special kind of coach, she's a shamanic healer and a life coach who was a medical doctor, which I find just fascinating that she went from Western medicine to being a shamanic healer. She shares with you her journey a little bit, but also she's written some books that I'll share with you at the end of this podcast. And also she shares a little bit about her own heart and her own journey with me and in her life. So in a minute, I'm going to get off and allow you to listen to this special interview that I did with Sarah. And when it's over, I'll get back on and say a few things before I end. So enjoy the interview. Sarah, welcome to my podcast. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much, Deb. I'm super excited to be here.
I know. Well, listen, there's so much for us to talk about. Number one, I would love for you to be able to share your story about your journey working with me and the whole idea of weight loss and that it's so much more than weight loss. And then I would love for you to share a little bit more about yourself as a coach and these books that you are writing that are just amazing. You have got to share with everyone. You promise you'll do that?
I will promise to do that for sure.
Okay, good. Well, then, first of all, can you just tell me why because you're a coach also, why you decided to hire a coach specifically, I'm going to say to help you lose weight, but as everyone's going to find out by the end of this, that it's really not about the weight, but why did you decide that it was time for you to hire a coach?
Yeah, last year in the fall, it was like I kept finding myself at about 2 or 3 in the afternoon, face down in a bowl of muesli after lunch. And I have been on to I know myself pretty well. And I knew I was in a big pattern of resistance, and I wasn't exactly sure what it was, but I knew, like, I'm eating and I'm not hungry. I mean, this is not about hunger. It was about something going on with myself. And I just decided, like, this is the year, as the new year was starting to, come up, it's like, this is the year that I'm going to change my relationship with food, and also just to be in integrity with myself. For years, I guess I had done a lot of sugar eating and comfort eating and things like that. And I think for years I was probably able to get away with it. And then you get to be like, 50, 51. And suddenly I think that's part of it. I wasn't able to get away with it physically, but meaning, I had gained some weight, clothes were tight, that kind of stuff. But also there was a deeper part of me was like, I know I'm eating right now and it's not to slake hunger. It is something else is going on with me. Mm-hmm. And somehow I stumbled into you. I think it might have been through Jill Farmer or through some other St. Louis or Martha Beck coaching thing. And I listened to your podcast and I was like, wow, I like this lady. And I really liked you because you're kind of, you're a coach's coach, I'd say. You're great for somebody who is, you're a wonderful coach for somebody who's going to kind of get slippery, as we say in coaching, and try to squirm away, which I felt like you were somebody who had a lot of compassion, but you were also very firm. And I needed somebody like that, somebody who wasn't going to be, somebody who's going to help me hold my feet to the fire with love.
Yes. And I would say, with great love for you, that you were a little slippery.
I know. And for people in the coaching who aren't in the coaching world, how do you describe slippery? Somebody, I guess, who's just like, doesn't want to be pinned down, is constantly mentally trying to find a way to escape.
Yeah, I think the best way to say it too, it's like that. And then it's like, I think it's really, really smart, bright women who know they're smart and bright. And they think that the stuff that's coming up in their mind is brilliant. Mm-hmm. And really what it is, instead of it being brilliance, it's a way of kind of getting away from what's truly happening for you, but it sounds really good.
Yeah. And I think, from speaking for myself, sometimes not wanting to feel those uncomfortable feelings, even though this is what I do for a living, is help people to, I guess I don't do that necessarily for a living, but I do help people to connect with their deepest desires. But for me, anyway, this is how I really connected with you when I listened to your podcast. And really what that began was like a deeper journey for me into, as we began to work together one-on-one, I began to realize what I wanted was this impeccability. I love this concept of, not perfection necessarily, but being impeccable with my word to myself. So if I say, I'm going to nourish myself with good food, or I'm going to block off this time on my calendar for myself to have a break or a retreat or something, then I'm going to follow through. And if I don't, I need to be real curious about what's going on with me that I didn't, that I, instead of having the wonderful salad I had planned, I decided to eat a bowl of Wheaties. Not that Wheaties are bad, but
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, especially because of the type of coaching that you do, I think it'd be wonderful if you can share with us. I know the story, but I love the story so much about how you came up with impeccability, because we were talking about why it's so important to have a compelling reason of wanting to lose the weight, and had to be a lot more than just weight. And then you sent me an email with this card on it. Can you tell everyone how that came about for you?
Yeah, I think it was like right around December or something. And one morning I was sitting, this was after we had started working together. Yes. And I somehow I had this stack of beautiful cards from I think it's the Fourfold Way, which is, I'm a physician who left my job to step into this world of shamanism. And so I often will, do this process of divination, which is seeking, hidden information to help you by looking at cards or stones or whatever you want to work at. But anyway, that morning I flipped over this card, and it was really this, addressing this beautiful idea about impeccability, that when we are impeccable with our word, it's sort of, I don't remember what the card said. I'd have to pull the card back out, but it was just a really powerful touchstone for me, because I realized, this isn't about just food. This is about everything. I mean, yesterday I said to my husband, I really want to go take the kids outside and get them off their electronics, because this isn't about just like electronics and the kids. This is about like our impeccability as a couple and how we believe we want to raise our kids.
Mm-hmm.
Like we could ignore them and let them, sit on their iPads all day, and quite happily they would do that probably.
Yep.
Or we could live in impeccability with what we say is important to us. And so instead we took the afternoon and went outside and had a great, like a wonderful time. So it's like that. I mean, but it just became a deeper thing. And I realized that this was just a journey about my own spirituality and the way that I was using food to escape really uncomfortable feelings, or to, to sort of the resistance that I was feeling, and to kind of soothe myself from that. That this became more about like my own spiritual practice became enhanced. Like the more I could be impeccable with my food, it helped me to be impeccable in my own spiritual work, and made me experience deeper things and trust more in my own path, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. And I'm thinking about, because of the type of spiritual coach that you are and how important that is to you, that the impeccability became even more important, because I think as I watched you in this journey, as you became more impeccable with yourself, it's almost like you almost became like you started honoring yourself more, like really seeing your own importance and what your own body had to tell you. And that when you started eating in a more clean way, you actually could connect better to your body and even get more clear messages for yourself and for your clients. Tell me about that.
Yeah. I definitely sense that. So one of the really neat things when we work together is just kind of tracking different, how I was feeling in my body. Yeah, I began to experience at work that when I would be doing a shamanic journey or journeying for other people, that I felt more deeply connected and more clearly connected. So it was just definitely, I could see this direct relationship. Like when I take care of myself and I, eat in this way that is nourishing to me, and when my body is lighter and it's, well nourished, well rested, all those things, that has a direct impact with my relationship to the divine. Mm-hmm. Now that motivates me,
yes.
Wearing size 4 jeans, or I don't know, like whatever motivates other people, I don't know, or like going to, looking good in a bikini. Not that I don't enjoy my body and love my body.
Right.
That wasn't super motivating for me.
Correct.
Although I must say that now I realize, my gosh, I feel so good. And you don't realize when you feel good, how much time you spent mentally not being happy about, having tight jeans or whatever it is. So, yeah.
Yeah. And so like, I was thinking like the whole idea of, I think a lot of people, when they first get into this coaching with me, they might think that their compelling reason is to have a smaller dress size or to weigh a certain weight. But what I see, and the reason I love you speaking about this so much, because in the end, the compelling reason has to be so much bigger than a number. It has to be, because, hey, if that's all anybody ever wanted, they'd have it by now and they wouldn't be hiring me, or they wouldn't be still looking after all these years. And, we have a society of women who are not happy with their bodies and are eating for all the wrong reasons and not being able to feel their feelings, when the feelings, and you can tell me about this for you, Sarah, with being able to feel more of the discomfort, has it helped you?
Yes. So the first thing we did when we started talking back in, I think it was November, it was like, you reminded me kind of getting back to square one. Like, what are you feeling when it's that 3:00 and you're pouring that bowl of muesli?
Right. That's
which I
what
was doing.
Yeah, that's exactly.
And I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, there was sort of this big stew of thoughts that were in my head about various things, my kids, clients that I cared about a lot, things that were going on. And when you do, well, no matter what kind of work you do, I mean, it's a wild and crazy world, and there's a lot of suffering out there. And so a lot of that was on my mind. And what I realized over time is I could be aware of that and do something to help with that. Sometimes I learned I didn't need to do anything. I just need to have to, acknowledge, oh my gosh, I'm worried about one of the kids because of XYZ going on with them. Mm-hmm. And I can't stop thinking about it. Mm-hmm. And then I could do something to help myself. I could meditate. I could go on a walk in nature. Like I started making this list of things I could do when instead of turning to muesli, I could I could go on a shamanic journey. I could ask, well, as you know, Deb, because you've read my books, I could go to my spirit guides and ask for help with this. So maybe there was something I needed to do to help myself. But a lot of times I just realized, oh yeah, just acknowledging I could use like a little rest right now, or I need to, kind of lay down and do some do a session of yoga nidra to relax and just let go of some of this mental stuff I'm hanging on to. So yeah, I stopped. It really just became a massive awareness tool, really paying attention to feelings. Mm-hmm. And now I've kind of gotten to the point where as we've worked together, it's been like almost more like 7 or 8 months over time that now I'm just noticing, wow, sometimes I have urges for, brownies with hot fudge frosting or whatever it is.
To be specific.
Yeah, to be specific. And I just realized I can kind of go to this mental place where I'm like, that's just an urge. And yeah, I know what those are like. I've tasted those a million times. And I am starting to get to this place where I can feel that urge and just kind of ride it through almost like a little wave. And that's been really neat because every time you don't give into that and you just sort of let it be there, you do feel sort of stronger and more victorious. Like I'm not, this doesn't have such a grip on me. I think one of the things in our society, we just keep hitting this story over and over again. So if you hold this story that somehow like chocolate is so powerful or you love bread and it's just so incredible. It's like that story is getting hammered online 24/7. So it's not surprising. Like I held it too.
Yes, you did.
But man, if we let our lives be ruled by brownies, it's like that's really not giving ourselves much credit. And I think you've been great about, sort of pointing that out, like the ridiculousness of it. And sometimes it hurts to acknowledge that we've given it so much power. I mean, I know when I've been talking to you, sometimes it's like, oh, yeah, I guess I have given it that much power. Yeah. So it's not easy work. I mean, I think this has been a really big challenge, this work we've done together. It's not easy, but man, really powerful stuff has happened. Well, and I feel like it's changed a lot of things in my business, in my life. It's just made me aware of a lot of other places where I have just, been in resistance or not wanting to look at uncomfortable things, etc.
Yes. And so, that kind of brings me up to one other point that I wanted you to talk about a little bit, because this whole idea of discomfort, social situations for you, because you're pretty social and you go out to meals with different people a lot, right?
Yes.
And that was one of our first conversations. It was the discomfort you had of being in situations where people were cooking beautiful meals and wanting you to eat it, or you thinking that they wanted you to eat it. And,
right.
And, even the idea of, drinking wine or alcohol, all of it, doing it for reasons other than you actually really wanting it yourself. Could you just say a little bit about that? Because I think where you started and where you are now is so amazing that if you could just share that with people, that there's hope, that they actually could go out to eat with people and totally listen to their bodies and still have a good time. Could you just tell people that it's possible?
Yes. It is possible, people. Yeah. I mean, where do I start? It's just like one of the first things that happened, I remember I was doing these book clubs for my book, Swimming with Elephants, and all these wonderful women's groups were inviting me through Skype and also locally to their homes. And this group of women invited me who were people I didn't know at all. But I was like, absolutely, I'll come. This is great. I love it. So I get there, and the first thing, they offer me a glass of wine. And I'm like, oh, no, thank you. I'll just have a glass of water. And I could tell a little bit of discomfort, like right off the bat. Or maybe it was me, maybe it was them. I don't know. But it was,
That's a really good point that you could tell. And probably
yeah.
for sure it was you for sure. Because unless they told you that they were
How
very
could I
uncomfortable
know?
without you drinking, it was in your head.
Right. Then the next thing is like jump in the buffet because I've made this amazing, food, whatever. And, some of the things that she was serving were all these like handmade tortillas with beautiful, it was amazing. Mm-hmm. And I did not have the wherewithal to say in that moment, no, thank you, or I'll only have this part and not that part, because I just felt all this horrible, like, oh my God, this woman made this wonderful, like handmade empanadas. Like, I have to eat this.
Yes.
Because I was really tied up in not wanting to hurt her feelings, wanting to be gracious, all that. Mm-hmm. And with alcohol, I mean, oh my gosh, that's a whole separate journey, but that's really brought up a lot of things. And what I've learned is that really most of the time, nobody really cares what you're doing. Most people are thinking about themselves, but, I'm not too concerned, but it's okay. Like, I can ask for what I need, and now, I go out to restaurants and go to people's houses, and it's no big deal. I eat before I go sometimes, like, so that I know that I'm not hungry, because if I don't know what's going to be there, and I just kind of do the best I can to stay with what it is I want to be eating. And doesn't mean I'm perfect. We've talked about different times where, the birthday cake was served. I'm like, well, I guess I'm going to have a piece, and like sort of, in that moment, my human moment, decided to do it. But I'm a lot more aware now. Now I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And I watch what happens to me as I, if I eat a piece of birthday cake, what that does to me over the next couple of days. Like, it starts to really, it can sort of light me up like a Christmas tree and make me want to eat more and more sugar. So that's like a whole nother topic, but
very much awareness of that is not another topic. It's the whole idea of what actually happens when you do that. But even more important, like what you're saying, is that you're so much more, like when you decide that you're going to be impeccable, like if you tell yourself, this is what you're going to do, and you do it, does it not feel fantastic in itself just to do what you say you're going to do and honor that for yourself?
It absolutely feels incredible. And that feeling leads to kind of an empowered feeling in everything you're doing. And it starts to, like, as I was telling the example from yesterday, it begins to inform the rest of your life. So it's like you start with this food thing, but it begins to like up level everything. And it's not comfortable. Oh, it's not. So that's why it's really good to have somebody like Deb kind of holding your hand through it, and also just a touchstone, because every time we would talk, I would always come away with some wonderful new insight that helped me to kind of navigate. Like, for example, you were saying like something about, sometimes we want to get to a number on the scale, like, oh, I'm obsessed with getting back to the weight I was in college or whatever. For some people that's motivating. But one of the things that really motivated me was, we talked about the fact that my weight could be my measure of impeccability.
Yes.
And so that when I look at the scale, it's simply a reflection of, have I been impeccable with myself? And have I been eating what I said I was going to eat, or what's been going on? And I kind of love that, because it's not about me as a person. It's just like my behavior. Am I living the way I say that I want to live?
I love it. And that really has made a difference for you, when you not so consumed with the number, but more consumed with your own behavior and being able to, to say what you mean and mean what you say and stick with it and go, you know what? I'm important enough that I can do that.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I just love that for you. And that makes me think, when we think about impeccability, it makes me also want to talk to you a little bit about the last book that you wrote, Swimming with Elephants, because I just got through reading it. And I have to say that as long as I've been coaching you, now that I've read the book, it's like I have this whole new insight into you. And I just really would love for you to share with our listeners your journey from being a medical doctor to a life coach and a shaman. I think that, number one, it's an unbelievable type of transition. And if you could just tell us a little bit about it, it might give a lot of women that are listening to this hope about their own transition into wherever they really want to go. Could you say something about your journey?
Sure. Yeah, I had been in practice for 20 years and
Amazing.
had really loved my work for a long, long time. But slowly over time, I started feeling more and more kind of disengaged at work.
Mm-hmm.
I tried pursuing, I thought, well, maybe I'll go do another fellowship, or maybe I'll do this. Or, I kind of explored all these other alternatives. But as I explored them, none of them really helped. I mean, none of them really felt great. And one of the things that really happened was I started getting more interested in what makes people well. My job was to sit at a microscope all day and make diagnoses as a pathologist.
Yeah.
Is it benign? Is it malignant? What's going on with this patient's tumor or whatever, or lesions? And I suddenly just started wondering, gosh, I feel like I'm barking up the wrong, like I want to be kind of working upstream from here. Like, how could we create wellness before illness sets in?
Yes.
And that happened through, being part of a multidisciplinary breast cancer care conference where a lot of conversations were getting kind of squelched in the name of, we had a lot of work to do and there wasn't a lot of time. And sometimes the social workers and nurses would bring up things like, is this patient doesn't have a very supportive partner, or this patient's partner is abusive, or this patient has no transportation and no family members and is completely alone and I'm worried about her. And we often didn't have time to talk about those things. And I remember thinking, wow, like what if 20 years ago we could have helped, gotten her community help, would she still be ill? I don't know. I mean, I didn't know the answer to that question, but so anyway, it began me on this journey. I finally took a sabbatical for 3 months, which turned out to be pretty radical because during that time off, my husband is also a doctor and we have 4 kids. So life was pretty chaotic.
Yes.
And that summer I started spending more time in the woods. And that's when I sort of had this kind of a series of strange things happen to me. But I started to realize that there was sort of this other aspect of the universe that I hadn't been aware of, that there were spirits, and that there was maybe this path with, where there was love and compassion and compassionate spirits that could help others. And stumbled into animal spirits and that whole thing. And it just kind of grabbed me by the hand and I went running with that and eventually left medicine to do what I do now. Yes, I would say for anybody, it was a very confusing process because none of us wants to wake up one day going, I don't like the life I'm in. It's a very uncomfortable feeling. But because I had always presumed I would work till I was 80 in medicine or 75, I had no plans of leaving early, and it certainly wasn't easy. But, by making a little space in my life to explore what did light me up, I would say was probably the most powerful thing I did. And that one thing led to another. And eventually I found my way. So if you're out there and you're feeling like, I'm hating my work, I don't know what my next chapter is, or maybe your kids have all left and you're like, I feel like there's something I'm supposed to be doing, but I have no idea what it is. Just to create some space for yourself, and let yourself follow anything that sounds interesting, even if it seems completely strange. Because I'm telling you, like me looking at a book on animal spirits at the time, I was like hiding that thing under the cover of night at first because I was like, who? My God, like what will people think of me if they, will they think I'm Looney Tunes? And we had a lot of mental health problems in my family. So part of me was actually quite worried. Maybe this is the beginning of the end for me. So if you feel, like you're kind of descending into madness a little bit, that's okay too, Sometimes things have to get kind of strange, but that's sort of the way it works, following whatever that strangeness is.
Yeah, it sounds like it's kind of like a common theme. It's like even when we're talking about eating, it's almost like the same thing. It's like, you're going to have to get really uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
And it's the same thing here. It's like discomfort is not necessarily something that's bad. I think that we in our culture think of it as something to avoid.
Right.
And I'm thinking if you avoided that, you never could be doing what you're doing right now. That's
right. And I think the people that I admire are leaning so hard into that discomfort. It's just crazy. Like I just heard Liz Gilbert, she was speaking about, anybody who follows her wrote Eat, Pray, Love. She lost her partner early in the spring. And she was in this horrible like grief, in the middle of the grief, and in the middle of that, losing this love of her life, like seriously, somebody who she felt was her soul partner in the deepest level. She made this prayer to the universe, like, just seriously, like, incinerate me, take me, I'm ready, like, do more. I mean, I'm willing to take whatever it is so that I can get to the other side of this, you know, because the suffering was so great. So I think it's like that willingness, or that mantra. I use that a lot. Like, I am willing to face this discomfort, because
I like it.
to not face it is to continue to be face down in the muesli, which ain't any fun either.
You know, really, yes. That is so true. It's not like you're comfortable to begin with.
That's right. And life is filled with discomfort, but that facing those things, we discover in facing those things, and with the help of other people like you, Deb, it's like we discover we are so much more capable of so much amazingness. Yeah. And I think it's a trick to think, oh my gosh, I'm finished. I think sometimes when we're coaches, we think, oh, well, I should be evolved now and figure out all my problems and not need any help or never need any coaching. But I think looking back on this 6 months, like, wow, investing in some regular coaching for myself was one of the biggest gifts I gave myself in the last year. And I'm glad I did, and it also helped me create tons of content for other people, because as I was going through that with you, you know, I shared part of that journey, what I thought would be helpful for other people. And so, I mean, I think it's awesome. We need each other.
We need each other. And, you know, I'm thinking about for you. So if somebody's listening and they're interested in what you're talking about, how do you help someone who wants to do something different, but not exactly sure? How would you help guide them? Because you work differently than a lot of coaches. And, you know, I think what you have to offer is so unique and so different. And, you know, for the people who are looking for that, how would you tell them what you do? Because number one, they need to read the book, Swimming with Elephants, for sure, yes, just to hear your journey. But, you know, how would you help them? And the other thing is, too, I know you've written other books, too, so you need to tell us a little bit about that, too.
Well, one of the things, you know, I coach a lot of people that are really like super high achieving type A people, you know, similar to myself, similar to you, Deb, people who have climbed the ladder, maybe in medicine, maybe in some other probably well compensated field or highly educated field. And so we find ourselves in our head a lot trying to solve these problems. But whatever we're facing now, we can no longer solve necessarily with our brain power or intellect.
So powerful.
And so my work is all about helping people to connect in a deeper way, to start driving their life from the heart, you know. And one of the most powerful things that I can offer is, you know, if you're listening and you're curious about spirit animals, would be to go to my website, followyourfeelgood.com.
Love the name. Love the name. Love the name.
It's a command.
I love it.
And to go in, and there's a journey there where I drum for you and invite you to go and seek out a spirit animal who can help you. And if you're listening right now and you're like, my God, that sounds crazy. It sounds kind of fun. And maybe I'm a little skeptical. That's perfect. You know, that's okay. That's exactly where I was when I sort of approached this. And what I found is when we discover a spirit animal, it's really funny. They have this amazing way. They show up for us in the way that we need them to show up, and to empower us, to show us how to proceed, and we can get help. So that's one sort of way to start. And then I also offer shamanic healing, which is, again, not really a process of a mental process so much like coaching, often is working on thoughts, right?
Yes.
And, you know, really paying attention to what's going on in our life, which is fabulous. Shamanic work really is a place where you set your intention, and I help you to set that. Like, for example, maybe it's find divine guidance on your path in life, you know, and then, or you want to heal from, you know, a painful divorce or something that's happened to you that was traumatic. And then I call all my loving and compassionate spirits. And then we ask them, you know, what's recommended for this person. And shamanic healing usually restores balance to a person's spirit. So by taking things that don't belong away, or restoring something that's been lost, which is a pretty common thing recommended, is something called a soul retrieval. And you can read all more about that at my website, And then I also offer coaching, which a lot of my clients are, again, very smart people, very creative people, very highly sensitive people, and maybe spiritually minded. And a lot of them learn how to journey to their spirits and to work with the spirits to help them, practically speaking, whether they're working at an ad agency in New York and trying to put their first television pilot together on the side, or they're often people that are, drawn to creative things, whether entrepreneurial or artistic, or sometimes we do straight up coaching. But I tend to work pretty intuitively. So that's kind of what I do. And my new book is called The Book of Beasties, Your A to Z Field Guide to the Enlightening Wisdom of Spirit Animals. So it's sort of this big encyclopedia that's very illustrated, and also instructs you at the beginning how to work with the messages of animals that are crossing your path in life, and how to discover your spirit animal as well.
Okay, so if somebody would like to work with you, where should they go?
Well, you could just go to my website, followyourfeelgood.com. You can go there. And again, just subscribe to the newsletter, and you can find out, you can read my blog. You can kind of wander around in there and see what looks interesting to you. And then if you're ready to go and work together, you can go and book a shamanic healing, just a single session. Okay. Or you can book something called a divination, which is a shorter sort of a 30-minute session where I help you to get clarity on something that's muddy in your life. And so that can be kind of a neat way just to try this kind of medicine,
yes.
like a different kind of medicine out, and see what you think, see if it helps.
Well, yeah. I think there's all different kinds of ways for people to reach out to you, and I'll put it all in my show notes so that people, whatever they feel in their heart that they need to do, they'll be able to do it. Because I think that you have a lot to offer that's very different from anyone else. And, I would love to read what Christiane Northrup wrote. She wrote about your book, Swimming with Elephants. And I just love what she wrote. So I just want to share that with everyone before we get off, which is, she said that this is entertaining and a moving front row seat in the drama that unfolds when a Western-trained physician does the work required to become a true healer. That's what she wrote about your book, Swimming with Elephants.
And yes, what a lady. She's so amazing, such a trailblazer.
I know she is. And also, I think it speaks a lot about you in your book that she was willing to write that for you.
Yes. I am so grateful.
Yeah. So, if anybody has any reservations or hesitations and they know who Christiane Northrup is, then you need to go check out Sarah.
Thank you, Deb.
Oh, Sarah. Listen, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for being on my podcast. As a coach, I respect you. As a client, I admire the work that you've done on yourself. And I thank you for allowing me to help you.
Thank you so much. And oh my gosh, I really am just so grateful for your the skilled way you do things, and your amazing podcast, which everybody should, I'm going to share it again. I keep sharing you, and I've interviewed Deb at my, I think our interview is at YouTube, and I think it's on my website as well. So okay. Check that out also.
Beautiful. Well, Sarah, thank you so much. And hopefully we'll be talking soon. But for now, we'll say goodbye.
Thanks, Deb. Bye.
Bye. Well, what did I tell you? She's amazing. I know. And, I also want to say that as a client, I loved working with her. And you hear from me all the time about how much I love working with my clients and how much I love them. But again, it's just so true. I love this woman. But didn't you find her journey from medicine to shamanism fascinating? And I really want to encourage you to read her book called Swimming with Elephants, because it talks about her journey. And I think that it would help anybody that's transitioning in any way and needs a little help on how to do it or how somebody did it, to read this book, because I think anybody can relate to it, and her writing is absolutely beautiful. And if you want to know more about her, you can go to her website, which is called followyourfeelgood.com. And you can find out so much more about her, get her books, sign up for her newsletter. She really is amazing. And I also hoped that she helped you understand a little bit about this word impeccability. Because what I talk about a lot is the whole idea of honoring your own commitment to yourself. And to me, that is being impeccable with your word. So as I sign off today, that's really what I want you to take away from this whole interview and podcast today is how can you honor your own commitments to yourself? How can you be impeccable with what you tell yourself? How can you be impeccable with your word? So until next week, I want you to think about impeccability. And I also, of course, want you to be very, very kind to yourself. See you next week. Bye-bye.
To get a free copy of Dr. Deb's companion workbook with all the tools, homeworks, and discussions that she uses in her podcast with all of her private clients, please go to drdebbutler.com/change. This will make it even easier to follow along with her in future broadcasts.